Welcome to the Senior Techie Podcast.
Glad to be here.
You know, whenever we hear the word technology today, there's this immediate, almost stressful image that just kind of pops into our heads.
Oh, absolutely.
It's usually like a glowing screen or a really confusing menu with tiny text or some flashy gadget that requires 3 different passwords and, a mandatory software update just to turn on the living room television.
Right, yeah. It feels like modern product design treats everything as this complicated, ongoing project that just demands your constant attention.
Exactly.
Rather than, an actual tool meant to serve you quietly. The burden of maintenance just completely overshadows the benefit of the device most of the time.
It really does. And I want to say right up front to you, listening right now, you are not confused by technology.
Here.
That is a myth we just need to bust right away. You are simply, and very understandably, tired of tech that makes one single thing easier, but somehow manages to make, 3 other things incredibly annoying in the process.
Yeah, the fatigue of the learning curve is entirely valid. I mean, you want to live your life, you want to be comfortable in your own space.
Right.
And you certainly don't want to moonlight as an IT specialist just to read a book in your living room or keep your home safe.
No, nobody wants that.
So we are seeing this distinct split in the market right now. There is tech that exists purely to show off, and then there is the right kind of tech, the kind that quietly has your back and respects your time.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Mm-hmm.
Because we need to completely redefine what technology actually means for you and for our community.
Mm-hmm.
It is not about those flashy gadgets. We are talking about invisible infrastructure.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, think about when indoor plumbing or electricity first arrived in homes. I mean, they were massive, intimidating projects.
Oh, hugely intimidating.
But today, we don't think of a light switch as technology. It's just infrastructure.
Right, it just is.
So in plain terms, tech is simply anything that reduces effort, reduces worry, or reduces risk in your ordinary everyday routines.
And that is the core objective right there. Good tech lets you stay independent.
Yes.
It helps you age in place comfortably without turning your daily life into this frustrating obstacle course. I mean, if a tool lets you stay in your home longer or rest easier, or if it just helps you avoid one more exhausting chore at the end of the day, that counts as technology.
Definitely.
And the physical shape of it doesn't matter at all.
Which happens to be the guiding philosophy of the Senior Techie who brings us this show.
Yeah.
It's all about empowering you to master these tools, to use them to your advantage.
Exactly.
Because you are absolutely capable of doing so. We just have to cut through the noise and look at what actually works for your specific lifestyle.
So let's examine what that invisible infrastructure actually looks like in practice. Maybe starting with the physical environment of your home.
Yeah, let's do that. So the first piece of infrastructure we're looking at today is a perfect example of function over form. It's a device called the Aquara Presence Sensor FP2.
Catching.
Right. Now, if you looked at it on a shelf, you'd think it was absolutely nothing special. It's just a small, unremarkable box that sits on the wall.
It really is unassuming.
But it solves a fundamental flaw that almost all smart home gear struggles with. It actually pays attention to human beings, not just large movements.
Yeah, it addresses a massive pain point with automated lighting and security systems, specifically the issue of traditional motion sensors constantly losing track of you when you stop moving.
Oh, that is so annoying.
Yeah.
But before we get into the practical application of how it fixes that, we should demystify the jargon on the box, because the packaging prominently advertises that it uses millimeter wave radar.
Right, which sounds like something from a military jet.
Exactly. Instead of picturing a submarine or a fighter jet, can you explain this?
Yeah.
I tend to contrast this with traditional motion sensors, which use passive infrared. A traditional sensor is like a security floodlight over a garage, right?
Yep, that's exactly it.
It looks for large changes in body heat moving across its field of vision. It works perfectly if you are walking past it waving your arms.
Right, but the flaw in passive infrared is that if you sit still, say you're reading a book or resting in a chair, your heat signature becomes stationary.
And the sensor gets confused.
Exactly. The sensor stops registering the change, assumes the room is empty, and shuts off the lights.
And then you are left waving your arms in the dark, trying to remind the sensor that you exist.
We've all been there. But millimeter wave radar operates on a completely different physical principle. It is much more like a bat using echolocation.
Wait, like a bat?
Yeah, like a bat. It sends out these tiny, invisible radio frequency ripples into the room, and those ripples bounce off of the physical geometry of everything in the space, including your body, and return to the
Oh,
device.
wow. Meaning it can basically feel the room in real time rather than just waiting for a heat signature to cross a threshold.
Exactly. Because it is mapping those returning ripples, it registers even the absolute tiniest movements. I mean, it can literally detect the rise and fall of your chest breathing while you are dozing in a recliner.
That is incredible.
It knows you are still there, even if you are perfectly still.
That distinction is crucial. It isn't looking for movement, it is sensing presence.
Exactly.
Now, there are two other terms that pop up constantly when setting up this kind of gear. A hub or platform, like Apple HomeKit, and establishing zones.
Right, those are important.
So if the hub is acting like an orchestra conductor, I'm assuming that means it is taking the signal from the sensor and telling the smart lights and the Wi-Fi router to play the same song.
The conductor analogy hits it perfectly. You have various instruments, the sensor on the wall, the smart bulbs in the lamps, the alarms.
Right.
They cannot communicate with each other directly in most cases. So the hub stands in the middle, receiving the presence-detected signal from the sensor, and then directing the lights to turn on. It orchestrates the harmony.
Got it. And regarding zones, if I am understanding the millimeter wave mapping correctly, I don't have to treat my entire living room as one giant identical trigger.
Nope.
I can draw invisible fences inside the room.
You can. With a regular sensor, stepping a toe into the room triggers the whole space. But with this radar, you can draw a virtual box around the doorway and another virtual box around your reading chair.
Okay, so the sensor knows the difference.
Exactly. It knows that someone walking past the doorway requires a completely different response than someone who just sat down in the chair. The conductor can react differently to each of those fenced-in areas.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for our listeners. We aren't talking about setting up a fancy light show to impress the neighbors.
No, definitely not.
We're talking about practical, daily living and safety. We're looking at eliminating trips across a dark room to find a switch. We're looking at fall prevention in places like bathrooms and hallways.
Which is huge.
It is. Furthermore, the documentation notes it can detect up to 5 people at once. If you share your home with a partner, or if you have a caregiver moving around the house, it understands all that traffic simultaneously.
And that sensitivity leads to one of the most powerful safety features of this specific technology: optional fall-related automations.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, because it detects micro movements like breathing, it registers presence even when someone is lying completely still on the floor.
Which completely flips the logic of a normal sensor.
Yep.
A standard motion light assumes that no movement means the room is empty and turns the lights off. But during a fall, no movement is exactly the crisis you are trying to detect.
Exactly. You want the system to recognize that someone is there, but abnormally still.
Right.
And because the sensor is communicating with your conductor, your hub, like Apple HomeKit, your Manuro, or perhaps a family member who helps manage your home, can set up vital safety rules based on that sustained presence.
So you can program the system to recognize patterns.
Right. For example, you could say, if presence is detected in the bathroom after 10 p.m., and that presence remains in that specific zone for more than 20 minutes without leaving, send a text alert to my daughter's phone.
Okay, I need to push back here for a second on behalf of everyone listening.
Sure.
The capabilities sound genuinely life-changing for aging in place safely. But the tech industry has a habit of calling things plug and play when they actually require a degree in computer science.
Fair point.
Is setting up these invisible fences and automation rules an actual weekend IT project?
I appreciate the skepticism, and I won't sugarcoat the reality.
Yeah,
It is not something you just stick to the wall with an adhesive strip and walk away from.
I figured.
It requires a stable Wi-Fi connection, the hub we discussed, and a dedicated block of time to sit down with the companion app to define those zones correctly. You'll probably be looking at the Apple Home app support page for a walkthrough.
Right, I was actually looking at the app mechanics earlier to see what that setup entails. It isn't coding, but is highly visual.
Exactly.
You open the app on your phone or tablet, and you are presented with a blank grid that represents the room. You use your finger to literally paint squares on the screen. You paint a blue box over the area where your bed is located, and you label it sleep zone. You paint a green box over the doorway and label it entrance.
And that is the core of the setup process. You are manually mapping your physical space into the digital interface.
Right.
But you also have to teach it what to ignore. If you have a ceiling fan, the moving blades will reflect those millimeter waves, and the sensor might think a person is hovering near the ceiling.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you have to paint a red box over the fan in the app and tell the sensor to ignore that specific area.
So there is a tuning phase. You do the work once, you refine it over a few days, and then the infrastructure takes over.
Yes.
It's akin to planting a perennial garden. You do the digging, the sweating, and the soil prep on the first weekend, and then it blooms for you year after year without daily maintenance. That is exactly what good tech should do.
Exactly. The heavy lifting is done up front to eliminate the daily friction forever. It fades entirely into the background.
So here's an action step for you. If you already use any smart plugs or smart bulbs, pick one notorious problem spot in your house.
Great idea.
Maybe it's that dark hallway leading to the guest bathroom at night. Just imagine the physical relief of never having to touch that light switch again.
Oh, it's wonderful.
The lights gently fade up the moment you step out of bed and turn off only when you leave the area. That is where a device like the FP2 genuinely earns its keep by preventing falls before they happen.
It restores confidence to the simple act of navigating your own home. You no longer have to hesitate before getting up.
Okay, so we just solved the physical risk of navigating a dark hallway. But there's another massive physical and emotional hurdle to aging at home, and it happens before you even get out of bed.
Very true.
We redefined tech earlier as invisible infrastructure, anything that reduces effort or worry. The shape doesn't matter. It isn't always digital.
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't look like tech at all. Let's talk about the immense physical toll of managing the bed itself, which brings us to a product called Peel-Aways.
What's fascinating here is that it is a sharp pivot from millimeter wave radar to bed linens.
It really is.
Yet it is equally brilliant in terms of engineering a solution for a severe real-world stressor.
Peel-Aways are multi-layered fitted bed sheets. There is no app to download, no Bluetooth connection to establish, and no QR codes to scan.
None of that.
On the surface, they look like standard fitted sheets, but underneath that top surface, there are up to 5 soft, waterproof layers engineered into one single fitted sheet.
Yeah, and the engineering of those materials is incredible. Each individual layer is remarkably soft and breathable, yet completely waterproof.
Which is key.
Think about the cascade of events that usually follows a nighttime accident in bed, whether due to incontinence, a severe illness, or just a spilled cup of tea. The mattress is immediately at risk, and managing the situation becomes a full-blown, physically exhausting crisis.
Absolutely. You have to strip the heavy blankets, wrestle with those awful fitted corners that snap back at your knuckles, and likely haul a heavy, wet load to the wash machine at 3 a.m. just to prevent the mattress from being permanently ruined.
Yep.
It's exhausting just describing it.
Right. But with Peel-Aways, the engineering preempts the crisis entirely. When an accident occurs, you don't strip the entire bed.
Thank goodness.
You simply grab the corner of the top layer and you peel it away. In under a minute, you reveal a completely fresh, dry, clean layer that is already fitted and in place underneath.
It functions mechanically like a sticky lint roller or a pad of paper on a desk. You make a mistake, you tear off the top sheet, and you instantly have a fresh blank page waiting for you.
Yes, exactly like that.
It's basically a stack of clean beds ready to go. Now wait, the immediate question any logical person will ask regarding waterproof peel-away layers is about comfort.
Sure.
Do these feel like sleeping on crinkly plastic or paper? Because the phrase waterproof layers usually conjures up the image of sleeping on a crinkly plastic medical pad, which nobody wants.
Oh, I know. It is the most common hesitation, and thankfully, the materials science prevents that. They do not feel like plastic or paper. The waterproof barrier utilizes microporous membranes.
Meaning the pores in the fabric are microscopic. Small enough that a water droplet cannot pass through to the next layer, but large enough that body heat and vapor can easily escape, keeping the sleeper cool.
That is the exact mechanism. The layers are manufactured from specialized breathable fabric blends explicitly designed to mimic the feel of regular, comfortable sheets while providing that clinical-grade protection.
That's amazing.
That is why they are so widely adopted in home care and senior living facilities.
Well, this brings us to a much broader conversation about the reality of caregiving and aging at home. We talk about the physical strain of changing a traditional fitted sheet.
It's significant.
It really is. If you are a caregiver trying to change linens while a loved one is still in the bed, it requires rolling the person back and forth, fighting with the mattress, and bearing awkward weight. It strains the lower back.
Oh, big time.
But the data shows this goes far deeper than just a physical chore.
It really does. The National Institute on Aging provides some sobering, essential resources on caregiving and managing incontinence that highlight exactly this dynamic.
What do they say?
They document the severe physiological impacts of sleep interruption. Caregiver burnout isn't just an emotional state of feeling tired, it is a measurable physiological condition.
Right, because when a caregiver is woken up in the middle of the night because of an accident, they're usually jolted out of deep REM sleep. They
Exactly.
perform 30 minutes of manual labor, their heart rate elevates, and by the time they return to bed, their nervous system is fully engaged.
And the NIA points out that this chronic disruption of sleep architecture directly degrades the caregiver's immune system. It spikes their cortisol levels and accelerates physical exhaustion.
That's terrible.
You are trading essential recovery time for manual labor. Transforming a 30-minute crisis into a 1-minute peel is a critical health intervention for the caregiver.
You are preserving the caregiver's physical health, and equally importantly, you are preserving the dignity of the person receiving care. The emotional weight of these nighttime disruptions is profound.
Definitely. The psychological literature on aging in place heavily focuses on the perception of being a burden.
Yeah.
When an older adult has an accident, the prolonged cleanup reinforces a loss of independence. The apologies, the sighing of the tired caregiver, the awkwardness of the heavy lifting, it erodes dignity and fosters guilt.
A drawn-out cleanup amplifies that guilt. But if a sheet change is a quiet, simple, 1-minute peel, the crisis is completely averted.
Exactly.
The person in bed maintains their dignity because the situation is handled swiftly and silently. They feel secure rather than burdensome. And the caregiver, who is likely already managing a dozen other tasks, feels a massive reduction in their overall overwhelming workload.
It changes the entire emotional texture of the night for both people involved.
And it is worth noting, the utility of these engineered sheets extends far beyond managing incontinence. They offer incredible flexibility in various scenarios.
Oh, for sure.
If someone is dealing with a severe illness and is stuck on bed rest, managing hygiene becomes much simpler. If you have grandkids who occasionally struggle with bedwetting, it eliminates the midnight laundry runs. Or honestly, even just utilizing them on a guest bed so you don't have to strip the room the second your company leaves. It's fundamentally a smarter way to manage the operational demands of a home.
Yeah. Someone observed a miserable, repetitive problem, analyzed the friction points, and engineered the layers, materials, and fit so the worst part of the job simply disappears. That is the purest application of technology.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We have a high-tech radar sensor on the wall using invisible radio waves, and we have a stack of cleverly layered fabric sheets on a bed.
Yep.
Two completely different products in completely different shapes, addressing completely different rooms in the house.
Yet, if we connect this to the bigger picture of maintaining your independence, the wall sensor and the layered bed sheets are exactly the same kind of tech. They are both invisible infrastructure.
They both exist to remove repetitive, exhausting tasks. They conserve your energy.
They both support safer, more comfortable aging at home. Caregivers get back the precious time and physical energy they were losing to manual, frustrating work. The millimeter wave device on the wall and the engineered sheets on the bed share one quiet, ultimate goal: ensuring you do less scrambling, less lifting, less worrying, and more living.
It's about creating a home that works actively with you instead of passively against you. You don't have to be at the mercy of your home's physical limitations, and you don't need to fear the tools designed to fix them.
Absolutely not.
Once you understand the underlying logic that a complex sensor is really just a bat looking for movement so you don't fall, or a sheet is just a pre-made stack of clean beds so you can go back to sleep, it strips away the intimidation. You are the master of these tools.
And cultivating that sense of empowerment is the critical difference between feeling overwhelmed by the prospect of aging in place and feeling deeply confident in your own environment.
So here is a second action step for you. If changing sheets is a recurring struggle in your house right now, try Peelways on just one bed.
Yeah, just give it a shot.
Maybe start with the primary bed of the person who needs the most assistance. Get one pack, treat it as a dedicated trial run, and monitor your own energy and stress levels over the next month. Observe whether removing that one miserable chore gives you a little piece of your life back.
Start small, solve one problem at a time, and let the engineered solutions do the heavy lifting for you.
As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to ponder. Take a look around your home today. Walk through your daily routine. What is one exhausting, repetitive chore that you have simply accepted as just a normal part of getting older or a normal part of caregiving that might actually have an invisible tech solution waiting to solve it? You don't have to just accept the struggle as inevitable. The right tool is out there, quietly waiting to have your back.
Keep questioning the friction in your daily routines. There is usually a better way.
This podcast was brought to you by The Senior Techie. It's available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. If you'd like to receive their free newsletters, you can subscribe at subscribe.theseniortechie.com.